Toma, dua.
Selamat datang di Fakultas Pertanian Universitas Pembangunan Nasional Veteran Yogyakarta. Fakultas Pertanian adalah salah satu fakultas tertua di UPN Veteran Yogyakarta. Berdasarkan Surat Keputusan Menteri Urusan Veteran RI Nomor 139/KPTS tahun 1998, tanggal 15 Desember 1958, diresmikan UPN Veteran Yogyakarta, sekaligus tonggak berdirinya Fakultas Pertanian. Perubahan status UPN Veteran Yogyakarta dari perguruan tinggi swasta (PTS) menjadi perguruan tinggi negeri (PTN) membawa konsekuensi strategis yang besar. Penegrian merupakan tantangan yang menuntut peningkatan kinerja dan partisipasi yang semakin besar lagi dari seluruh sivitas akademika dan pegawai UPN Veteran Yogyakarta pada pembangunan bangsa. UPN Veteran Yogyakarta terus berbenah diri untuk menjadi PTN yang tetap melestarikan kredo kampus, disiplin, kejuangan, dan kreativitas. Sebagai salah satu fakultas yang lahir dan besar bersama tumbuhnya UPN Veteran Yogyakarta, Fakultas Pertanian memiliki visi menjadi fakultas yang unggul dan profesional di bidang pertanian berkelanjutan, dilandasi jiwa bela negara dan berwawasan global. Hingga saat ini, Fakultas Pertanian telah melahirkan lebih dari 8.000 sarjana dan magister yang kiprahnya banyak diakui di masyarakat. Fakultas Pertanian memiliki banyak fasilitas dan laboratorium yang dapat mendukung riset dan aktivitas belajar mahasiswa. Fasilitas dan laboratorium dilengkapi dengan teknologi terbaru, sehingga mahasiswa bisa mendapatkan keahlian yang sesuai dengan perkembangan zaman. Sistem administrasi Fakultas Pertanian terintegrasi secara online, sehingga mahasiswa mendapat pelayanan yang efektif dan efisien. Saat ini, Fakultas Pertanian UPN Veteran Yogyakarta mengelola 4 program studi, diantaranya Prodi Agroteknologi S1, Prodi Agribisnis S1, Prodi Ilmu Tanah S1, dan Prodi Magister Agribisnis S2. Semua telah diakreditasi, terutama untuk jurusan agribisnis dan agroteknologi sudah terakreditasi A. Dengan dukungan sarana prasarana pembelajaran yang memadai dan dukungan sumber daya dosen serta tenaga kependidikan yang mumpuni, Fakultas Pertanian mendidik para mahasiswa dengan berbagai macam bahan maupun metode pembelajaran yang memperkaya pengalaman pembelajaran mahasiswa. Proses belajar dijalani sebagai langkah dasar untuk memperoleh pengetahuan sebagai bekal meraih masa depan yang lebih baik. Fakultas Pertanian telah mendapatkan berbagai penghargaan, diantaranya dan kerjasama, diantaranya komitmen Fakultas Pertanian untuk membekali mahasiswa dengan pengetahuan yang memadai untuk meraih masa depan yang lebih baik.
Fakultas Pertanian UPN Veteran Yogyakarta, bringing knowledge for a better future.
persimpangan langkahku terhenti. Ramai kaki lima menjajakan sajian khas berselera. Orang duduk bersila. Musisi jalanan mulai berakhir. Seiring laraku kehilanganmu.
Prodi Ilmu Tanah UPN Veteran Yogyakarta berdiri tanggal 24 Agustus 1985 merupakan perguruan tinggi negeri di bawah Perguruan Tinggi Kedinasan Departemen Pertahanan Republik Indonesia. Pada tanggal 27 Februari 1995, Prodi Ilmu Tanah mendapat status disamakan di bawah Kopertis Wilayah 5. Sedangkan pada tanggal 11 Agustus 1998, Prodi Ilmu Tanah terakreditasi pertama mendapat nilai A di bawah Kopertis Wilayah 5. Sedangkan tanggal 3 Agustus 2008, Prodi Ilmu Tanah UPN Veteran Yogyakarta memperoleh kembali akreditasi dengan peringkat A. Sementara pada 11 Desember 2015, Prodi Ilmu Tanah UPN Veteran Yogyakarta diaktifkan kembali. Prodi Ilmu Tanah UPN Veteran Yogyakarta mempunyai visi menjadikan program studi ilmu tanah yang berdaya saing di bidang reklamasi lahan dan sistem informasi geografi untuk mendukung pertanian berkelanjutan yang berlandaskan jiwa bela negara pada tahun 2025. Untuk mencapai visi program studi ilmu tanah diperlukan 4 kata kunci. Pertama, reklamasi lahan. Kedua, sistem informasi geografi. Ketiga, pertanian berkelanjutan. Keempat, jiwa bela negara. Untuk mencapai kata kunci yang pertama, reklamasi lahan, diperlukan riset dan pengabdian masyarakat baik dosen dan mahasiswa, laboratorium sumber daya alam dan reklamasi, kuliah reklamasi, kerjasama dengan perusahaan tambang. Untuk mencapai kata kunci yang kedua, sistem informasi geografi, diperlukan laboratorium S3, kuliah sistem informasi geografi, penelitian menggunakan metode S3, geospasial, dan perusahaan pemetaan tambang. Untuk mencapai kata kunci yang ketiga, pertanian berkelanjutan, diperlukan kerjasama dengan perusahaan perkebunan, mata kuliah pertanian berkelanjutan, penelitian dan pengabdian masyarakat, pemanfaatan lahan marginal. Untuk mencapai kata kunci yang keempat, jiwa bela negara, diperlukan penggunaan kehidupan pengenalan kampus dengan jiwa bela negara, mata kuliah bela negara, dan media matyasa, serta kerjasama dengan Angkatan Udara Republik Indonesia. Di program studi ilmu tanah menjadikan program studi ilmu tanah yang berdaya saing di bidang reklamasi lahan dan sistem informasi geografi untuk mendukung pertanian berkelanjutan yang berlandaskan jiwa bela negara pada tahun 2025. Dalam mencapai visi program studi ilmu tanah, diperlukan 4 kata kunci. Pertama, reklamasi lahan. Kata kunci kedua, sistem informasi geografi. Kata kunci ketiga, pertanian berkelanjutan. Sedangkan kata kunci yang keempat, berlandaskan jiwa bela negara.
Kami dari Babel Berbagi Kebaikan.
Pak Heri sudah sang. Pak Heri sudah.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the second session of International Webinar of Soil Science Study Program, Faculty of Agriculture, Universitas Pembangunan Nasional Veteran, Yogyakarta. We would like to say thank you for register and become the participant of our webinar, Global Concern on Land Degradation and its Solution. Before we proceed the program today, we would like to express our sincere gratitude to honorable speakers from USA and Indonesia, and also all webinar attendees. Yesterday, we had a very interesting webinar, and in this second session, I hope it will be more interesting discussion. Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, let's we go to our main event, plenary session, who will be led by our moderator, Professor Ali Munawar, PhD. First of all, allow me to introduce our moderator, Professor Ali Munawar, PhD. Professor Ali Munawar, PhD, he worked as lecturer in Soil Science Study Program, Faculty of Agriculture, Universitas Pembangunan Nasional Veteran Yogyakarta, and he got his bachelor degree from Universitas Gadjah Mada Indonesia, and he got his master and also doctoral degree in University of Kentucky, USA. Okay, Prof. Ali Munawar, PhD, please, time is yours.
Well, thank you, Ms. Liana. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Good morning, the honorable speakers and participants in Indonesia and Asian countries. Good afternoon, participants in Japan and Australia, and good evening, participants in the USA. Welcome to session 2 of the International Seminar Global Consensus on Land Degradation and its Solution, organized by the Soil Science Study Program, Faculty of Agriculture, UPN Veteran, Indonesia. Yesterday, in the session 1, we learned some issues on land degradation and reclamation in Southern Hemisphere, Indonesia and Australia, acid main drainage problem and management in Indonesia, and the current use of mineral matters to improve degraded water from Japan. Now, today, we are going to learn land degradation and reclamation issues from other northern part of the hemisphere, USA, and one from the east part of Indonesia. We have two speakers from the northern part of hemisphere, USA. These two speakers have different backgrounds. One is soil scientist and one is crop scientist, but their interests are very similar, how to deal with degraded lands. One, how to make land suitable to grow and establish vegetations and crops, whereas the other one, how to create plants, varieties adaptable to degraded lands in order to protect the land from further degradation. In addition, if yesterday we learned wetland degradation and reclamations in Indonesia that mostly found in the west part of Indonesia, on the contrary, today we are going to learn how land degradation occur in dry regions of Indonesia, in this part of Indonesia. Ladies and gentlemen, now let me call our speakers today. Prof. Jeff Skousen from West Virginia University. Hi, Jeff. Good evening, Jeff.
Yes, here I am.
Okay. Prof. Suwarji from University of Mataram. Prof. Suwarji, hello. Good morning.
Assalamualaikum, Pak Ali. Morning.
Morning. Assalamualaikum. And the third speaker, Professor Harry Utomo from Louisiana State University, USA. Hello. Good evening, Prof. Harry.
Good evening there. How are you doing?
Great. I hope you're safe from hurricane there.
I hope so.
Okay.
We are under attack.
Okay. Well, later on, I will briefly tell you why I call these three speakers as special speakers. Well, before the start, let me tell you how the webinar will go. This is going to be a panel started by 3 20-minute presentation from all speakers, and then followed by a discussion question-answer session. Ladies and gentlemen, let us call our first speaker, Prof. Jeffrey Skousen. Prof. Jeffrey Skousen, please. Yeah. Is a professor of soil science and extension land reclamation specialist at West Virginia University, United States. He finished his bachelor and master's degree from Brigham Young University in botany and range science, and his PhD from Texas A&M in the range science management. He is a very highly experienced scientist in the field, dealing a lot with mineland reclamation. He has been very productive scientist with more than 150 titles of written articles in reputable journal, seminar proceedings, and technical paper as well. He won many research grants from various funding agencies, both national and international levels. Professor Skousen is indeed my first mentor in the field of mineland degradation, particularly in acid mine drainage. In 2020, in the year of 2000, around this time, I visited University of Kentucky for a comparison study in mineland degradation with my former professor. And my former professor suggested me that I need to see Professor Skousen to learn more about land degradation in mine area. And then, indeed, I visited Professor Skousen. I met him in his office at West Virginia University, and he brought me around the campus and town and showed me his field experiment and reclamations, especially on AMD treatment using active and passive treatments. I'm really glad to meet you again, Professor Skousen, although virtually. Today, we will talk about post-mining land uses in the coal mine area of the United States. Prof. Skousen, the time is yours.
Thank you. It's a privilege to be here and speak with you at this international webinar. So thank you again for inviting me. It's been great. I listened to the talks last night or yesterday and looking forward to the ones today. So today my topic is post-mining land use. That's an area that I've been working in along with a number of other areas, but I feel like we must make these lands that have been disturbed into suitable lands that can be used for future generations. And so that's what I'd like to talk to you about tonight. Let's see. All of you are familiar that there, with the coal reserves in the world, the former Russian Federation and the US have the biggest coal reserves. Germany, India, Australia also have big reserves, and China. But I was surprised to know how much Indonesia had. Not a huge percent, but it's an extremely important amount and resource for Indonesia. And I also was not familiar with the number of coal basins that you have here. I have not visited Indonesia, but I am familiar with some of these areas down along here, very active tectonic plate areas. And I was, again, interested in some of the talks yesterday that talked about some of these areas. The coal seams that you have are unique, and so they offer challenges on mining and reclamation techniques. I did read up on some of the articles and reports that have been written, and so Indonesia is far along in their reclamation programs in comparison to other places where I've been in Europe, in China, in Korea, Australia, New Zealand. So I'm proud to see all the things that are going on. Lots of reports and lots of data and scientific articles on this. So today, my goal is to talk to you about the coal mining areas in the United States, and then tell you some of the new developments that we're doing with post-mining land use. The United States has 4 unique coal regions, and they are the eastern, the interior, and then these 2 lignite areas in the orange, and then this big western area. So what I hope to do today is to tell you a little bit about the pre-mining land use, how those areas mine the coal, what reclamation processes go on, and then what their typical post-mining land use is. In the early days of coal mining in the US, there was not much reclamation. There were no laws that required reclamation, and so these areas were stripped. The soil and vegetation was removed to get to the coal, and then they were often left without reclaiming them, without planting anything. And so that ecosystem damage, that landscape damage, was maintained for many decades. Finally, in the 70s, there was a big change that happened. A law was passed in the United States called the Surface Mining Control and Reclamation Act. And we call that SMCRA, but it completely altered the way that we do mining. It required a pre-mining analysis before anything could happen. There had to be a mine plan throughout the years that the operation would be open. And then there had to be a designated post-mining land use that would fit in with the mosaic of the landscape. This law required no erosion to occur. So this was to stop erosion. and to get a post-mining land use. Many, especially in the early days after the Reclamation Act was passed, most of the reclamation looked like this. It was big pastures, maybe some water resources, but in our region, which has trees, it was changed from trees to grass. The law allowed a lot of different post-mining land uses, among them the development ones where humans might occupy that area, this big group of plant ones that were cropland or rangeland or pasture land or forest land, and also wildlife habitat, and then this group down here on recreation with water. So those were sort of the options that coal operators had to choose from at the end that they had to produce on this land. So let me just walk through these 4 coal mining regions and tell you how this worked. So just so that you know, I live right there in West Virginia, just south of Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. So I am right in the middle of the eastern coal mining region. And it is a beautiful area, and not unlike Indonesia that I can see with hilly, mountainous areas. We get about 1,000 millimeters of rainfall. And so our forests are deciduous, lovely places. The coal mining that happens here, the coal seams are level, horizontal, and the real thing is to take off this vegetation and then remove the soil material to get to the coal. And so we blast that material, remove the trees, blast that material. We move that material with front end loaders or with big drag lines like you use. The coal comes out. Most of our seams in this region are 1 to maybe 3 meters, 2 meters at the most. And then that overburden is then backhauled and then is used to rebuild the landscape into what we call approximate contour, what it was like before. The topsoil was saved and that is respread on the surface. And then typically a hydroseeder limes, fertilizes, and then plants with seeds and mulches. We are very successful in this kind of reclamation approach. We can grow very large pastures, hayland. We can cut that land and make hay bales or biomass for various reasons. And of course, we can use that for cows, for grazing cattle. Some operators, even though it's a little more difficult, prefer to go back to trees, which was there before. And so we have a technique where we try to put the material back, plant the proper trees. This has been one of my active areas of research, is knowing which species of trees to plant and what the substrate, the soil materials are that should be used. And so here's one of my plots, one of my graduate students standing in a site that we had planted after 2 years. And it looks very rough with rocks, but trees grow very well in this, and a lot of native plants come in. After 6 years, it's begun to fill out. The trees have grown. And then after 15 years, these trees have begun to close the canopy, as we call it. And this is good reclamation, and this is sustainable for that part of the country. We also use plants that are suitable for wildlife habitat, and but those are the typical approaches. Now let's move to the interior region. That's in the middle of the country, this region here. This is completely different. It is flat land that is our most important soil resources for our food. The soils are 3 meters deep, wonderful, beautiful, that can grow numerous crops. So coal underlies this, so they strip off the soil and then use big drag lines to mine this coal. The most important part of reclamation in the interior region is replacing the soil and doing it correctly. We must place it back similar to what it was like before, and at least to 1 meter, but many times we place 1.5 to 2 meters of soil in those areas to make sure that we have enough rooting depth for the crops that we want to grow. And the test for good reclamation in the interior coal region is that we can grow the same crop to the same yield that was there before it was mined. If you cannot obtain the yield, then you've got to start over and reclaim it. So that's the key. If corn grew there before, corn must grow there again at the suitable yield. The lignite areas are quite distinct. We have this northern section up here in North Dakota and Montana. And then we have this other group down along the Gulf Coast. I got my PhD at Texas A&M, and I worked on a big lignite mine during my PhD and helped them on reclamation projects. Here, the land is also rolling, relatively flat, some trees, but mostly savanna, lots of grasses and shrubs. Again, the use of big drag lines to remove the overburden. And then again, it usually goes back into some dry land kind of wheat or to pasture for grazing animals. So very successful reclamation in the lignite areas. The western region is this exceptionally large region that spans the entire length from the coast of Canada or the boundaries of Canada all the way down to Mexico. So it extends all that way. And there's a lot of different topography there. Much of it looks like this. It's a desert and only gets maybe 20, 30, 20 or 30 millimeters, just a few inches. So the plants that grow there are shrubs like sagebrush. And again, it's rolling. Big drag lines come in and move the overburden to get to the coal. This is a unique area where the cover is only about 20 meters, but the coal is 30 meters. Huge amounts of coal to remove there. And so when they reclaim, they take all that coal out and then push that overburden back. The whole landscape has gone down by 30 meters because the coal's been removed. And so this landscape then is reclaimed. It usually goes back to native plants that was there before because it's a desert, not many other things will grow. And they can grow plants for grazing. But probably the most important use in the western region is for wildlife habitat. And this is a group of elk, but some of the lands are specifically targeted for certain species. This is a sharp-tailed grouse. It is on the endangered species list. And so miners reclaim the land so that this particular species can live there. And if it can, then they're successful. So that's kind of the western region. I would like to just in the next couple of minutes tell you some new things that we are doing, particularly in the eastern region. And again, I want to make sure that we all understand that land is a permanent resource. It is, we must save it for future generations. And so when we disturb land, it must be reclaimed so that it can benefit society. So here's some other ideas that we are doing. We are using more intensive agriculture and horticultural crops. So we're getting better at putting soil material back on in a fashion that will grow ornamental crops as well as fruit crops. So we have several sites where we're using these areas for nurseries. So we'll grow these apple trees and then we'll pick them up and then go plant them elsewhere. And so we're also growing apples there. One of the areas that I've been working on a lot is bioenergy crops. Two of the crops that we grow are switchgrass and miscanthus. These can be grown for biomass to either burn in power plants, or we can use it for biomass in other ways, wood fuel stoves, but we also can make it into ethanol, a transportation fuel like gasoline. And so if we can get enough of that, these grow very large on mine lands. Miscanthus there on the left is 3 to 4 meters tall, and the switchgrass grows very thick too. So they grow high levels of biomass on these mine lands. This is a unique one. This is not far from Morgantown. This area was mined by a very large drag line, one of the largest in the world, and it mined through this area for a couple of decades, and it created this very large landscape that was rolling with a lot of water and lakes. A conservation group came in and bought about 5,000 hectares of this land. And they have gone around the world and have brought endangered species from all over the world and placed on this site, this mine land. And there are dozens of animals, particularly the threatened and endangered, that live there. Very unique situation. And they even have it so that they have things called safaris where tourists can go and look at these animals on a bus like that. Very unique idea and a good one in our area. We also are having trouble with insects. Maybe you are also, but we're seeing a decline in insects. And so there's been a big push to plant native species that have flowers that can attract insects. And so a lot of people are looking at this as a post-mining land use to have native species for insects. Another idea, particularly with Professor Munawar's talk about acid mine drainage, a good friend of mine, Paul Zimkavich, has been using acid mine drainage sludge, the material that's captured at an acid mine drainage treatment plant. We have discovered that that sludge has high concentrations of what we call rare earth elements. And these are very critical to technology. They're the scandium and yttrium, as well as the lanthanide series. There's 17 of them that are very hard to get and they're expensive. And so we've discovered that this particular type of sludge in our region has high concentrations. So other things that we can do, here's a mined area just outside of where I live, where it had been mined. And today it looks like this. It is now a developed land with schools, ballparks, and other things. We can use this land for residential property for homes.
You have 3 minutes.
For airports and schools and that sort of thing. We also can grow high value crops using greenhouses and what we call high tunnels. And just kind of the last idea or two, sometimes we should preserve some of these old remnant areas to let people know what it was like when mining went on. For example, in Korea, they don't mine coal anymore. And so they are preserving some of their old structures and other things to let people know how mining occurred. We can use recreational facilities. Here's an abandoned mine site that has been turned into an event center. So there are many, many opportunities. And the way that we reclaim land can be as varied as our imagination. So if we're going to disturb landscapes, we must reclaim them because land is a permanent resource and something that we must preserve. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you, Chef. Thank you, Prof. Carson. It's really great and inspiring presentations on mainland reclamations that everybody can learn from you. Thank you. Well, we're gonna continue with next speaker today before we have question and answer sessions. Now we move to second speaker. I will invite Professor Suwarji. Hello, Prof. Suwarji.
Hello, everybody.
Okay, Professor Suwarji is a professor of soil science at the University of Mataram. He finished his master's, his bachelor degree from Soil Science Department, Gajah Mada University, Indonesia, and got his master and PhD degree from Charles University, New South Wales, Australia. He wrote more than 40 articles in scientific journal and seminar proceedings. He has extensive works with various parties such as international NGO, as well as funding agencies like Vigo International, AusAid, SAIDI Canada, Cisairo Australia, and focusing on the community empowerment in the rehabilitation of degraded drylands in each part of Indonesia. He is my special friend because he and I, many years ago, more than 40 years, used to be a classmate in the Department of Soil Science at Gajah Mada University for about 4 years. I remember how often I visited his apartment in the Turban area to chat and kill a little time before we went to the library for a study or laboratory tour. Welcome, Professor Suwarji. Today, he is going to present the road to sustainable dryland farming in each part of Indonesia. Professor Suwarji, time is yours.
Yeah, thank you very much, Prof. Ali. Nice to see you. So I still remember when we get rode the motorbike. Yeah.
Yes.
yeah. Yeah, like what Professor Ali said, I'm going to talk about the road to sustainable dryland farming in east part of Indonesia. So I wrote this paper with my friend Tejo Wulan. So he's graduate PhD from McGill University, and we are a good partner working together on community development. The brand that professors could talking about the situation in the Western in North America, and what we have in is part of Indonesia. This is my summary of my talk. Introducing a dryland farming, current global issue, some issue of dryland agriculture practices and land degradation in West Nusa Tenggara Province. So the question is, do we able to redirect sustainable future in dryland farming? Because it become a very worrying us, and land degradation is quite severe and very rapid in our province. And then I'm going to talk about the extent of land degradation in West Nusa Tenggara Province, problem and concern as well as a solution. And we have been working with the farmer as well as in some village in Sumbawa as well as in Lombok Island for almost 25 years. And I'm going to talk about this one, and we developing integrated sustainable dryland farming system. And then I will conclude this one. Now, before talking further, I'm going to remind you that in the international level, United Nations Convention to Combat Desertification, UNCCD, so enter to the fourth 26 December 1996 and UNCCD, and let you focus on the red word, UNCCD emphasize on the need of coordinate research effort and action program for combating desertification and promote a new approach to managing dryland ecosystem and managing development aid flow. And yesterday we are talking about the wetland, and probably today we are going to talk about the dryland. And government of Indonesia ratified UNCCD decree number 135 1990 98. Indonesia will do her best to fulfill obligation as a part of the convention UNCCD. And my word that I'm going to present today is partly a national action program, NAP, National Action Program on UNCCD conducted in West Nusa Tenggara Province. And just remind you what is a dryland farming, dry farming, as well as rain-fed farming. When I conducted a national conference in Mataram, probably 15 years ago, my professor, Professor Tejo Yuwono from Department of Soil Science, UGM Yogyakarta, asked him, what is a dryland farming? And I'm refer to the rain-fed farming. The dry farming has 750, less than 750 rainfall a year, and prolonged the spell most common. Mostly we are not able to grow properly. So we call this area as the arid region. So, and the second one, the one that we mostly have in West Nusa Tenggara Province, 80% of our area is semi-arid region. Comparing with the wetland is only 8%. But the government focus the last 40 years is concentrated to develop wet agriculture, or we call paddy, And dryland farming must contain 750 millimeter and crop pile less. But in the last one, rain-fed farming that we have in what we call farming in humid tropic area, Sumatra, Java, and so on, but occur in upland. So usually we are successful because rainfall is quite high. Now, talking about the global issue, so at the moment, increasing human population, so of course will be different in the USA situation that we have in West Nusa Tenggara Province, which is people still, rely on life on the land, Increase the human population, demand for food and lifestyle, and then development in dry land, of course, also derive the factor not only people in West Nusa Tenggara, but outside Nusa Tenggara, particularly the industrial product, the need for environmental friendly production system and quality for food. And at the moment, a growing concern on the need of transparency and traceability of agricultural product system. And agriculture area is getting smaller and smaller. So we probably only on less than 0.5 hectare per family. So increasing pressure, the use of sloping land, the area causing several severe damage of land and environmental degradation, decreasing productivity will occur because they are really on chemical product, fertilizer, pesticide, and so on, and increasing large area of land. This is warning me from year to year, even the government program, we have land rehabilitation and land reforestation, which is the ability of government is surrounding 5,000 to 7,000. Occurring land degradation in the field is quite high. I'll show you later on. So the direction in agriculture in the tropical dryland is not news, you know. This and a concern environmentally not sound, you know, from indigenous agriculture system into conventional and industrial agriculture, which nowadays shifting agriculture in the land to the hill due to the population pressure. This is quite worrying me. The extent of land degradation in this province is quite high, and it has, you see, in the West Nusa Tenggara province has a short rainy season. In some area, only 2 or 3 months, like in the case of Sekaro, East Lombok, and occurrence of soil erosion and wind erosion also high, and so it degrade and reduce the productivity of land. Now, this condition lead to extreme social disruption, property, migration, and famine. Those conditions are prominent in some area with increasing pressure of unsuitable agriculture practices, particularly those who increasing poverty in degraded land. You see, so I noticed from 14 August to 17 December, 1,331 forests were getting burned. See, and the existence of land degradation now is increasing to 718,000 hectares, which consists of 432 941 hectares in the forest and 437 to 70 hectares outside. We have really a big problem in this degradation. Without any positive intervention through appropriate environmental management program, this trend might lead to acute land degradation, and we are not hoping to be later on desertification. We are comparing the data. This is the data of 10 years ago, and this is the recent data. You see, in the forest area, land degradation is almost double or about triple. But in the non-forest land, also increased substantially. So this is the cause of land degradation that we see in the field. Misuse land resources, illegal logging is quite high. Forest land encroachment. This is partly also due to the government policy. Let's say the government support a seed for corn development. A farmer don't have any more land, and the only way is in the forest land. That's a big problem. And also overgrazing, poor physical and chemical condition, and so on. Now, this is in the case of the one that I talked before. In the case of 2019, you know, this is the area of Dompu. They burn the forest like this. I noticed, you know, this is some picture come from my friend NGO, and this is the area in Bima. Yeah, quite severe here. And if you fly on the top of this area, you can see how they create that area. Now, they are using this area hilly slope like this to grow crop.
Not to
Food
work.
crop, you know?
Work this morning, but
And a convention of this area now is become food, you know. This is now what we are going to develop the drone in the future. So we have to be able to implement the protecting forest in the sloping area, and now responsible government from the province, not more providing free seed of corn. This is partly become a cause of problem. And safe preserve environment, able to increase the farmer income, increase productivity using environmentally sound technology, manage this. The question is sustainable talent planning. How we are able to develop this one? You know, the principle of integration, integrated dryland farming system is a healthy ecological balance. Economic viability is important, and according to its capacity and the smallest possible the effect. The question is, do monoculture crop able to preserve our future? So I don't believe in this one, and it look the growing food crop like this is good, but from our research suggests that mostly 60% of people income is come from the product of forest. Is come from the product of forest, and we usually tell people this is the young old lady working very hard, working very hard, and prosperity hasn't come there. You see, now this is my experience. Developing integration trees, grasses, animal husbandry, as well as food industry, animal husbandry, and timber becoming main income, and food industrial crop increase diversity product, and so on. And recently, the last 5 years, I'm developing integrated farming under coffee and cacao, surrounding Rinjani forest, which is there are 4, 5, or more than this one villages. We developed this one the last year, and now it's getting concerned people over there to preserve the forest. So what we are developing is able to have a high income and prosperity, economic dynamic and growth, food availability, security, renewable energy reserve, healthy environment, and increase in carbon. This is partly we have some example in Islambo. So 2001, this is a very degraded area in Separoh. It's a very dry area, only 2 or 3 months rainfall. So we're developing this using some sesbania trees, because it's not possible to directly grow other crop or even directly grow other trees. Land needs to be recon. This with my student, so we measure land quality improvement after 5 years. And see, recondition we are able to grow mango and to grow albasia and so on. After 17 years working with religious scholar over there, we are able to rehabilitate 120 hectare of land, and now becoming a very fertile land. This is one part of our result. We are able to develop a good industry over there. Second experience in Sumbawa. So we still have a forest like this in the top. You see, now this is we have to be able to protect this one. So we develop lake cropping, cashew, corn, and cattle in Sumbawa Iron, and able to conserve soil, water, and environmental. This is the result. 10 or 15 year community development, you see in the top dry season, water is flow and clean. And regularly I come there and I'm just drinking the water because I believe the water is clean, So in this area, we are able to develop the community development, which is able to protect the forest, while we are able also to get a good income. Lastly, we are also working in Stockholm area. There are many land working integration between Sesbania and food crop. You see, So mainly for it, we call Kaliandra or Gresida sepium on the rocky land, and the result will be this. So the production of forage, and this is commonly people working the cut and carry and take home to look after animal husbandry. So we teaching the kid responsible, to have their own income. You see, with this one, now they can continue their schooling from primary, secondary, until high school. You know, this is partly in the area of Sekarang, industry. Also. Now, some people from Japan interested to join with us and keeping some funding, So after more than 20 years, water from the uphill is gone, and we are able to, combining honey, which is with the pond, fish pond, and now become, recreation place. And this is the last example. So now it's growing interesting product we call elephant foot yam. So we call porang in bahasa Indonesia. And the national and international demand is so high, and this is a seed tree plant able to grow under canopy, 70% canopy. This is a promising one with we are able to protect environment. So we are working under cashew, working this one with banana, working also with coffee and cacao, this one as well. This one with agroforestry one. So we did farmer in a 4 village in the North Lombok, with very fertile environment. So this is the seed, and a good harvest. And the good harvest is in good of future because 1 kg of this one is 10,000. And mostly if we calculate with what they call calculation of input and output, we're able to earn 5 times higher than most of the gone in here. Because this one become interesting because it's a product that export in China, Taiwan as well, and Europe. So the agro industry developed very well in rural area, and we hope that we are able to, keep a promise to local people that we are able to combat land degradation. So land degradation in the island area is securing a very massive, very worrying for the future of Indonesian agriculture. The development of food crop monoculture is not promised. So we suggesting is integration of development program, between trees, crop, animal, and other. So experience suggested development sustainable integrated island farming system have proven increase farmer income and improve environmental quality. Thank you very much for inviting me, Prof. Ali. Hopefully there will be many questions later on, and I'll be able to give something. This is only a few part of our work. It's almost 25 years, and still many other. Okay, thank you so much. Assalamualaikum.
Walaikum salam warahmatullah. It's really very interesting presentation from Professor Suwarji from eastern part of Indonesia. It's really good job. He's working very extensively by empowering people in the villages. So Mr. Suwarji, or we call it Prof. Suwarji, is the head of Indonesian Associations of Elephant Food Yams. So he's now working hard to promote this really newly produced or elected commodity in dryland. Thank you so much, Professor Suwarji. Now we come to the next speaker. The honorable speaker for the third presentation is Professor Harry Utomo. Professor Utomo? Hi. Hi, Harry.
How are you doing?
Professor Utomo is a professor and F. Evelyn Digit endowed professor, Rice Institute Station, Louisiana Experimental Station, Louisiana State University. He is currently also the president of Indonesian Diaspora Network United, called IDNU. Professor Utomo got his bachelor degree from Brawijaya University, Indonesia, master's from University of Kentucky, USA, and PhD from Louisiana State University. And he did also several postdoctoral programs at LSU for several of years. Professor Utomo is very productive scientist with 7 patents, more than 100 articles published in reputable journal, proceedings, and also technical paper. As the president of Indonesian Diaspora Network, Professor Utomo has been traveling around the world as an invited speaker in various universities. Professor Utomo is my special friend because he and I used to live in one apartment when we were in Lexington. Professor Utomo, now is your time.
Professor Ali, I hope you hear me because
Yes.
I can hear you. Okay.
Are you hear me?
All right.
Okay.
So first of all, it is an honor to be here, and thank you for the invite. Unfortunately, Louisiana is under really bad weather right now. There is Hurricane Laura, category 4 or 5, as we speak right now, will be landed very soon in our coastline. So if for any reason there will be interruption or any drop in connection, that's the reason for that. So I will probably is out of my hand, and I apologize for that situation. And let me share my screen right now. Let's see. Okay, share screen. All right, can you see it?
Yep.
Okay, good. All right. So our research goal is to develop a variety or new plants that are capable of adapting the situation in coastal problem in Louisiana, which is erosion and degraded land. So for that, we are concentrating to produce just new plant for a specific reason for that. So we have been releasing 6 cultivar, new variety, 3 in smooth cordgrass, is a native plant species in coastal area. It is highly tolerant to salinity. It can be can go real well at the sea level salinity, which is 34 part per thousand. It's highly tolerant. And my presentation is probably touch on that effort by using the molecular genetic and breeding of the highly adaptable plant for coastal erosion control and degraded land. But more than that, we also be updating you with the potential application of this technology that we are developing. Okay, so I would like to give you the background of the magnitude of the problem occurring along the coastal of Louisiana. Here we can see the satellite documentation from several years back. So this is a very serious problem that disappearing coastal marsh on the edge of Louisiana Gulf Coast area. This is the fastest erosion or disappearance of land anywhere in the world. It's about 16.5 square mile per year, or 41 square kilometer per year. So this is a serious problem. And put in perspective that we are losing land a size of football field in every hour. In the last 80 years, we lost a total of 1,900 square miles of land, or approximately 4,900 square kilometers, which is bigger than Madura Island. So on your right, our satellite picture taken by NOAA in 1932 above and in 2011 below. So it's very clear what process is. The soil elevation along the coastal region are very flat, only 1 to 3 feet above the sea level, making these areas very vulnerable to sea level rise as well. So it's a complicated situation there. As you can see that the potential problem is very, very huge. So beside this obvious reason, I just mentioned to you, so why is it so important to control coastal land loss? So here I'll give you some reason for it. Louisiana coastal marshes is very productive estuary, supporting great population of fish, shellfish, and wildlife. It provides 30% of commercial harvest of fish and shellfish in American consumer nationwide every year. So it supplies about 40% of its fur nationwide as well, and therefore is it economically very, very important. Besides that, Louisiana marshes are very critical to wildlife, providing overwintering site for many birds that are on Mississippi Flyway. There are many reasons. Undoubtedly, vanishing marshes will affect the life and culture of Louisiana people who depend on the abundance of fish and shellfish. This is what it looks like. This is the aerial picture of Louisiana marshes system. It's very intricate system. Is kind of a complicated and complex thing. And here, the marsh is also important for a buffering during hurricane season, just like right now. So without protection of these marshes, the impact of hurricane will be full force. And this is good for protecting or reducing, protecting maybe not, but reducing the surge that occur during the hurricane season. I'll show you here another function of it. Is the resting site of brown pelicans, one of the protected bird in Louisiana. It's also home of many different kinds of cranes in the marshes. It's very pretty there. And undoubtedly, this is very important economy. This slide shows the productivity of estuarine system there. It's critical to the seafood production in the US, fish and shellfish. That's very known in the USA. Finally, I think it's also pretty and become the tourist attraction. It's important also for gaming and hunting and fishing industry. This is part of the big revenue for the state of Louisiana. This slide shows the current and projected land loss through the 2050. If there is no intervention, we can see there's serious consequences of that. That's why we need to do something with it. And one of the strategies of many that I mentioned here is the diversion of Mississippi River. As we know that each year, Mississippi River will bring the sediment from the upper part of the United States and deposit it into many places in the marsh area. Here we develop the diversion of it so that way we can replenish the land loss and add more new sediment to it. Hopefully will rebuild the marshes. The current mitigation effort in land loss consists of hard engineering technique as well as soft engineering technique. The hard engineering here I include is seawalls, building, groins, gabion, referent, and so on. Basically just to give the physical strength of the engineering or the built protection wall to give the seacoast area much easier to protect. The soft engineering composed of beach nourishment, land management, beach stabilization, and marsh creation. This is the example of the hard engineering, creating the seawall to protect the our land from the sea erosion. This is also the hard engineering, one of them. And this part of that, a combination of the terracing and hard engineering. And then this is the seawall in terms of the producing the tidal barrier island that placed in several strategic places, so that way the wave energy can be reduced, reducing the overall erosion itself. The soft engineering is to create new marshland. One of them is by dredging, meaning that collecting sediment that is redirected to new area, so that way it will create a new marshland by doing so. This is the system of it. We can be like miles away from the site of dredging to be put into strategic places, allowing the new coastal land to be created. It's part of it. And once accumulated enough, and then the shape is also created by using the equipment like that. The other soft engineering include the beach nourishment, and as well as creating some of the barrier and also enriching the shellfish to grow upon that, so producing a new kind of structure from below. This is typical hand transplanting to give the planting capability to protect land from erosion. And that was the background of our project. And like I mentioned before, that our project goal is to develop highly productive and adaptable native plant by doing so many different approaches. So we use conventional plant breeding, which is crosses, selection, progeny test, multi-year, multi-location trial, and so on. And also using the molecular genetic and DNA marker, and as well as cellular selection to help us create a diversity basic for it enough to tackle the variation that may occur in the coastal region. This is the, I won't go there very specifically, just to give you an idea, because I know this is soil scientists here that maybe don't need to know the detail on it. So I will skip that. And this is part of the plant that we selected in the lab, looking for the rapid germination and growing, because it's very critical that when we deal with the revegetation in the coastal area. This is plant from the lab. This is the plot trial in the field, just to see how the plant that we select and develop perform in the field. So our selection is aimed to change the genetic entity of it and do the field evaluation with it. So this is the progeny test in multi-location, multi-year trial in the coastal area. So this is one of them also in different places, using the airboat as the mean of transportation to get to that places. It's very difficult and challenging actually. Without airboat, we cannot do this kind of study. This is the same thing. And this plot test in different region in the coast. And of course, we get together with several agencies here to work together and discuss a lot of things, from the genetic aspect of it to the ecological, and as well as to the stability of the gene itself. So we are integrated into the different discipline and hope to come out with a better result there. So This is the main goal, the first one. And I just would like to just touch base very quickly in here. I don't want to spend too much in here, just to give you an idea what we did. This is some of the trial that we do, and we report this result in the Journal of Crop Registration, Journal for Plant Releases usually. As we can see here very quickly that the three variety that we released, Saint Bernard, Las Palomas, and La Fourche, are performing real well, if not equally well with the vermilion variety. So this is some of the improvement that we can report in here. This is the site of testing, and okay. And again, we'll show you just briefly. We are looking for the better spread and then better figure. Height maybe a little bit, but basically just mainly spread, because we are interested in doing the soil covering in short amount of time as possible. And this is just the DNA marker that we run through. We are looking for the diverse genetic background and also genetically diverse variety, and we plant it all together in the field or in the coastal side. They produce highly genetically diverse, allowing us to be more stable in the long run. And the next round would be to change plant type, because most of the coastal plants are sterile. That's the problem. So we need to change that to become a seed-producing variety. This is the snapshot of the new cultivar that we developed with high-producing capability, high-producing seed capability. And as we can see here, the seed set is improved. The seed germination is also improved as well. It is almost 2 or 3 times better than vermilion. It's very productive in terms of seed set, and it's better in terms of germination, the same scale. So we are getting a good result there. This is the seed of smooth cordgrass that we harvested from one of the cultivar that we have. And the next step would be how to bring this new plant into the action. So in order to do that, we can plant it by hand, which is very, very expensive that people do right now. But if we can do it aerially by using airplane, that would be a better option. So we look at that possibility and use the airplane as the basic system that we would like to hold on to. So this is the first aerial planting in the Belgius area. Very exciting one at that time. And this is the dispersion of the seed. We are checking if there is any homogeneous dispersion through the air, and it does. And this is some of the region, some of the site that we check, and they looks good. And of course, this is the first experiment, and we figure out a lot of problem with it, because bird will eat seed, because the seed is very palatable to it. And the second one, the condition in the region is very, very dynamic. You can have the tidal wave, wind, and also sunlight that is very, very damaging. So we came up with the idea to coat it and fortification to it. And then we fly again to see if there is any improvement there. This is at the Belgius site for the seed coating, the first one for seed coating experiment. And this is in the Mars Island, in the coast of Louisiana. That's right now is very, very hard because of the Hurricane Laura right now. And our study attracted media. They want to know what is going on. It's something that may be very beneficial to our problem. So to solve our problem, that's what they said. So I tag along with them. I mean, I asked them to tag along with us during the aerial seeding experiment, so they can document by themselves and then put it on TV for probably news or something like that. And this is the seed production, the first generation of newly vegetation from aerial seeding. This is a study specifically to address how easy is it to revegetate the coastal marsh by using the airplane. So we did a study on coated and pelletized seed looking for the appropriate seeding rate at that time. So we try to nail what is the appropriate seeding rate for it. So allowing us to be successful in revegetate the coastal. Here, it's looked like that the rate of approximately 241 kilogram per hectare would be the optimum one. And we did, of course, study, follow-up study for that, how good it is when we already use the appropriate seeding rate. And as we can see here, the plant stand, seed density, and panicle number in terms of seed production, we measure. And again, the highest one, 44.8 kilogram per hectare, is the best one. So allowing us to produce reasonably good vegetation in a short period of time. And here, we measure the germination rate, plant stand, stem density, panicle number, anything that very important criteria to help us to be successful in not only holding on to the plant that we develop from it, but also to strive to it. Now, the new plant producing seed, the natural plant doesn't produce seed. So they basically spread through the rhizome. And the new plant that we develop using technology that we have produce seed. So the seed will produce every year and it will spread faster than the old one. This is the basically study to confirm that. And this is the condition at the time when we do the aerial seeding. It's very barren. This is a new man-made coastal marsh area using the dredge technology that I mentioned before. And then we, after several years, and then we see is quite strong enough or stable enough to be planted, and we did do the experiment there. And this is 6 months after aerial seeding. So it's very good. So within 6 months, we have at least 50% coverage. So, and the following years, of course, because of the seed production everywhere, the full coverage was obtained. So by having complete technology, so this is the example of how we approach the problem a little bit completely, from the changing the plan and then developing the deployment, planting deployment methods. Now we are able to probably see through the big picture of it. I would like to mention to you that it's very expensive to do hand transplanting, as you can maybe imagine, because the coastal is just like this. You have to go to a certain area or touched area. You have to go through the airboat. It's very, very long boat ride, and also sometimes it's not possible at all, because it's impossible to bring all the material and then plant it over there. It's very expensive one. And now with the technology that we develop, it is very versatile. It can be applied to anywhere in the coast, because the airplane can fly anywhere in the coastline. With the crop duster or fixed wing airplane that we have, we can like maybe land it and take off in closer by area. It doesn't need to be in the asphalt runway, but as long as there is enough flat area, we can fly from there. So with this technology, a hectare of new land can be planted in only 40 seconds. So imagine that. And now we have the tool to think about how to manage the whole system. So this is something that we are looking forward to it, and hopefully this technology can be used. And also for Indonesia, hopefully if you guys have the similar problem, maybe it's not exactly like this one. This is colossal problem that we have, but at least the idea that we did, we can, you guys can probably try to apply or maybe repeat it in a different environment. I'm glad that the panel in here, the soil scientists that we have, are interested in the vegetation, because this is what we do. So I hope that vegetation will bring the land reclamation to be in functional mode fully. So because only when we have vegetation, the whole life system will be more productive and more stable, and hopefully the chemical process can be enhanced to create or to recreate the nature of the land before the mining or on other activity. With that, I would like to thank you again for the invitation and be glad to answer any question you may have. Thank you.
Okay, Prof. Utama.
Go ahead, Pali.
Okay. Can you turn off your...
Oh, okay.
All right. Okay. Thank you so much.
I didn't realize it. Yeah. Okay, certainly. Yeah.
Okay, that's a very interesting and inspiring talk from Professor Utama. The participants might follow his concept how to develop a plant species to protect our thousands of kilometers of degraded coastal areas in Indonesia. Ladies and gentlemen, the honorable speakers, guests, and ladies and gentlemen, thank you for all speakers that already presented their talks. And now we come to the new sessions, the discussion session with question and answers. The honorable speakers, we have several questions to each of the speaker that coming from different part of Indonesia. Let me read it first. The question for Prof. Scholzens. Hello, Jeff. Are you here?
Yes, I'm here.
Okay. Well, there is a questions interesting questions from Gola, Sulawesi. It's from eastern part of Indonesia. From Andy Darius, is from the Office of Government Planning in Goa, Sulawesi. The question is how to remove the heavy metal contamination in the soils in a way of minimum negative impacts, and how long it takes for it. That's a question for Jeff. And a second question for Professor Suarji. The question is come from Joko Mulyanto from UPN Yogyakarta. How to balance between land management with the concept of suitable dry land to increasing interest of community in utilizing these lands. And third question is for Prof. Harry. The question is, what is really considered in creating plants that can withstand the extreme post-mining environment? And well, I think I'll let you answer the questions first, and then we still have several questions that to be addressed. It's time to you. Yes?
Yes.
Please.
Most of the areas that are mined in the United States are the soil materials usually are those that were there before, and so they generally do not have heavy metal contamination. If the rocks that have been broken up and blasted are left on the surface, even those do not have much heavy metal contamination, except maybe for iron and aluminum. And iron is a micronutrient, aluminum is toxic. So if the pH is low and you have high concentrations of aluminum, that can be a problem. If you're really talking about heavy metals like nickel and copper and lead, we do not generally have those in our soils and overburden. The only time we have problems with those is when we bring in fly ash or other waste materials that are sometimes used for soils. But before you do that, you should always have it analyzed to determine whether there's heavy metal concentrations in that. So anyway, in general, we do not have heavy metal problems with our native soils that are put on or the broken rock materials.
Okay, that's all. And please, Professor Suwarji.
Yeah, can you repeat one more time, Pak Ali?
Okay, the question is how to balance between land management with the concept of sustainable dryland to increasing interest of the community in utilizing lands. Probably in the other words that people are trying to use excessively their land, and how you approach the excessive utilization of land in order to have a sustainable land management.
Okay. Pak Joko Mulyanto, thank you for your good question. I think most of people in ISPAT, degradation of land is becoming a concern, becoming a concern. And we have to be able to suggest people how we able to manage our land. So the problem is people basic need, and they are people who don't know a lot about how to preserve land. And partly the government policy is very important as well, and what we have been done so far is keeping understanding of local people. Environmental preservation is very important for our future generation. So if we have that field experiment and they work together with us, like in the case of Sekarang, so only 2 or 3 months rainfall. So usually people only able to grow a special trees we call guava, in dry season. And sometimes they are successful growing a corn. So balancing, we introducing integrated system which is a balancing between the production as well as preserving environment. This is very important, and we are able to develop in 4 villages under guidance of Australian aid, about 120 hectare. The developing agroforestry, which is also put crop growing there. So as we know over there, only 2 or 3 months rainfall. So we have to choose or to select is a special crop like mung bean with a very around 70 day growing season, So that what we have been doing is introducing conservative method, conservative method, balancing between production and conservation. So that what we have been done. But actually, the government policy is sometimes tend to ruin the problem. Tend to ruin the problem. Let's say with introduction of corn, with a corn seed free, and then a growing industry of corn in this area, also, keeping a pressure, because people don't know exactly how they're able to get income. The only way they want to, do something that they know at the moment, and they have a marketplace. Corn having a marketplace, good. So if you work from Bima to Sumbawa, in left and right hand side, there are a big company, having a good a place which is they grow a corn, and there is no choice for local people. There's no choice for local people growing the corn. So if we are able to introduce something else which is able to compete with the corn, so we might be able to preserve. So the only hope is like that, Pak Joko. It's hope and balancing production and environmental degradation is quite hard in our case in the east part of Indonesia, because most people is only hope from agriculture, as my study also said, and they got more than 40 until 60% of the income is come from agriculture, and the rest they come from a forest. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Professor Swarji. Professor Utomo, please.
Okay, thank you for the question. It's very excellent questions. And with the plan development as general, before we embark into the project, you have to know exactly what we are thinking. First thing is to be able to know exactly what's the problem. Is it toxicity? Is it, say, aluminum or heavy metal toxicity or associated with it? Or it is the simply fertility problem and so on. So this is the first step that we have to know, because different problem, of course, a different solution and different strategy. And to be able to really answer to that question, that's the basic knowledge that we have to know first. And then, of course, along the way, when we try to develop a crop or variety associated with that, we always encounter a problem, and we have to be thinking about some solution with it. The thing that we think originally sometimes has to be adjusted in a way that we have to answer the whole thing at once. So for that, I think the safest thing to do is just to know exactly, just like what we did in the Mars area. Originally, we think that if we produce seed, we can do it easily, doing with the planting and so on, but actually it's not that easy. So we have to invent something different and different approach, and we keep going. And this is very expensive endeavor. I believe the same thing also with your case. So just be very careful and study thoroughly what you have there, and create a strategy and develop something. And if it's too high, for example, if toxicity of aluminum is very high, there's nothing can grow over there, you cannot just go and do it. You need to do something else, maybe combine it and neutralize a little bit and so on. So some thing that biological system can tolerate a little bit more, but it's not extreme one. So be careful with that, and hopefully by looking at several parameters that I mentioned, you'll be able to set up a strategy and also work on it to get what you want.
That's all.
That's
okay.
all.
Okay, thank you, Professor Utomo. Well, we come to second term. There are several questions for each speaker. For Professor Skosen, there is two similar questions. I will combine it into one question. From Mr. Kusnarta from Mataram University, Indonesia. He asks how much soil per hectare used for the reclamation in your areas, and what's such status of the soil. I'll combine it with very similar question from Ms. Rokmawati from UPN Veteran Yogyakarta. Her question is, to put topsoils back to the post-mining area for 1.5 meter thick requires a huge amount of soil. Where does the soil from? After reclamation, how long land is ready for plant cultivation. Specifically, I would say what is happening if we work in the tropics, where the soil is very, the topsoil, I mean, is very, very shallow.
And
Okay.
we have that problem. Oh, I'm sorry.
Okay, that was okay. For the second questions for Professor Swarji. Professor Swarji, there is a question from Muhammad Nurholis. I think the east part of Indonesia that is also suitable for developing sorghum for biofuel production. Would you please explain it? That's question. And the second question for Professor Swarji. When you develop such innovations, did you have to have demonstration plots before you really extend to the community? Okay. And for Professor Harry Suchahe Utama, the question is, how do we select and develop the local type of crops for protecting the coastal land? Okay, I think that's the question for all speakers. Let me start from Professor Skousen. Time is yours.
So we do have areas where we have very shallow soils. Yeah, in the eastern region, the soil on our mountaintops might be only 10 or 20 centimeters thick. And so when we remove the trees, we try to capture as much of that soil as we can so that we can replace it. Sometimes we have to supplement it with some of the other material below what we would think of as topsoil. And sometimes we'll even add amendments and bring in organic amendments like even sewage sludge or sawdust or anything else that we might be able to get from those areas. In the interior region where the soils are so thick to begin with, those operators must save that topsoil. They'll scrape it off in the horizons and they'll stockpile it, but when they're reclaiming, they'll put the C horizon down first, and then the B horizon, and then the A horizon, so that that whole profile might be 1.5 to 2 meters thick. And it is expensive, but that is the native topsoil that's already there. So they don't have to bring it in from anywhere. It's already there. They have to save it and then put it back.
Okay, Jeff. Professor Swarji.
Okay, thank Prof. Ali. The first question from Prof. Nurholis. Yes, I've been working with sorghum almost 10 years, and you're right, sorghum is a plant which is very adapted to dry condition, you know, and we are working together with Patan as well as Minister of Energy. So at the moment, the problem is marketing. So many people want to plant sorghum, but we haven't got exact price and market. And I'm not trying to get a big company in Bali, which is able later on to buy the sorghum. What we are going to develop is the sweet sorghum, which is we able to get juice from the steam, as well as we able to use the steam for animal feeding, as well as we are able to have a seed. If we calculate the result production sorghum, it's much more higher than corn. So I agree with Prof. Hollis that the potential plan for dryland in the east of Indonesia is sorghum. But we are now trying to learn and to study how they are able to adapt in acid soil, particularly urtisol. And we just now get some soil from Papua, studying how growing, how grow and yield product due to acid condition. We are trying to apply some soil amendment which is able to absorb aluminum. So the pH is still around 5, but the low content of aluminum, that we hope that they are able to grow sorghum. And the second question, yes, we working with people and having quite large pilot project first because we applying this one. In the case of like Sekaroh, there's a Japan company come to us and they have a problem in terms of regreening that area. So they plan a certain trees area for more than 10 times, but they are not able to, rehabilitate that land. And then we come and have a look. The soil is very thick. The soil is topsoil is very thick. Most of it very thick. And then what we are trying to do is recon the soil by using cover crop. And then using sesbania, and then after that, growing the mine trees. And GPRO is able to revegetate that land is almost 360 hectares per day, what they call international forest, because the money is come from GPRO association forest and something like that. Yes, we have to have a field experience first before we able to apply to the community. Community will be happy first. Is successful? And the second question is how the price. If they can get money from this one, and then easily they will adopt the system easily. Like in the case of Orang, we introduced this one the last 5 years. The first year, no one want to grow porang, and the second year, they are moving quite dynamic. Happen they come to other people place and still see it. Still the seed. It means that I'm happy. We are able to motivate them to grow this one because the income is quite high. So in terms of representation and able to rehabilitate and consider the first time is local people income. So one, they feel that they grown certain trees or they grown certain crop and they can earn the money enough and then they will do it. Okay, thank you very much.
Okay, thank you. Prof. Harry?
Okay, thank you.
Okay.
This is important question and I'm glad you asked. So all the plan release that we did, authority, DNR, and also the NRCS is very, very strict about it. So it's only native plant can be enhanced. They are not allow us to do it for obvious reason, adaptability and also invasiveness of other species or a new one that we don't know yet. So that's why we stick with the native plant, and I think that's a good idea, and you can do the same thing as well in Indonesia. So that way there'll be a specific native plant that we can work on, and hopefully we'll produce something better with less risk of anything else, like invasiveness or resistant to certain diseases that we don't know yet. So I think the safest bet would be to use the native plant.
All right. Okay.
Hopefully this answers your question.
Yes, it's really very clear. Well, we come to the third term or the last term of this discussion session. There's still one question for Professor Jeff Skousen from Aji Gumilang, Gajah Mada University. The question is, there are any danger of introducing other materials, topsoil, amendment matter, and organic matter, and vegetation from outside the reclamation area for environment and biodiversity in the reclamation area? The second question is for Professor Harry. Prof. Utama, one question is from the UPN guy. He doesn't mention his name. In your case, what is the characteristic of your plant species which are adaptable to Mars situation in Louisiana coastal areas? That's the last question for two speakers. Please, Jeff. Hello, are you there? Okay.
Yes, good question. Sorry. Again, we have very specific guidelines on what can be brought in. So if someone wants to bring in some other topsoil material or other amendments onto a site, they must demonstrate that those materials are suitable and that they will be useful for growing the crop that is being used. Again, we have strict rules about analysis of those materials, and so that we make sure that there's not any pathogens or heavy metals or other problems that would be introduced to that site. So again, the state and the federal government watch that very carefully, so that if someone is bringing in something that wasn't produced or taken from the site there, they have to demonstrate very clearly that it's suitable. In many cases, they just simply will not allow it. So I think regardless of whether it's organic matter or whether it's any type of topsoil or waste material that comes from other industries.
That's all. Okay, thank you, Jeff. Now it's Prof. Harry.
All right.
The last questions for you.
This is another good question as well. So I'm glad you asked. I didn't mention it before, but of course there is a reason for why we choose a different plan and how we did it. So first of all, we stick with the native plan. And then the second one is try to decide which plan that is very important and crucial to this make a difference there. So we selected 3 different plants, which is smooth core grass, California bulrus, and also sea oats. These 3 plants are native to Louisiana and also play a major role in coastal region. They are very, very adapted and with their own, of course, specification. Not everything will dominate everything else, but a certain region with certain type of microenvironment that will fit to certain plant. So the same thing will be applied to your case. So you have to look at the what is the major plan and what are the options there, and then use that as your vehicle to enhance it. Of course, the native plan need to be enhanced, because if they're successful, they don't need us, because they're already successful and there is no erosion. But in this erosion, and we need to do something with it to improve it, the erosion. That's how science comes into place. And for that, again, concentrate on several plan and stick with it. And illustrate the smooth core grass is the major plant in coastal area anywhere, not only in Louisiana, but also in the eastern and western coast of United States, as well as the different region in the world. So it's very famous one. It's very tall grass, about 2 meters height, and like I said, it's very adaptable to salinity level at sea level 34 ppt. So it's only a few plant can survive that. The California bulrus is very robust, and can be used to break the wave with breaker plants. But the problem is it doesn't tolerate salinity as much. So what we did is to improve it with salinity capability to tolerate the level high enough. You cannot go to the ocean because it jumped from 8 tolerance to 34 is impossible. But if you can improve it to 12 or 16, that's major. You can plant it in the brackish area. So again, here you know the limitation, you know the potential, and you know what. So that way we push it in a way that plant can tolerate, and with the new capability and trait that we have, they will be able to be used in outside the native range of ecological growth, and so on. The third one is CO is the sand dune collection plant. It collects the sand from the sea, so build up the dune. So this is also a critical thing. So the way the plant grow over there is require very minimal nutrition, can go in the sand basically with no nutrition, but it is strong plant. It's native to the Louisiana coastal dune, and we need just to make it robust. The windbreaker, the collection of these sand that we did with specific objective, and each plant has specific use for it that is in overall will improve the balance of the coastal as well. I hope this will answer the question.
Thank you very much, Prof. Utama. Well, ladies and gentlemen, the honorable guests and all participants, because of the time, now we come to the end of discussion sessions. Again, thank you very much for your questions and some discussion. I know there are several more questions from the attendants, but because of the time, we need to end off the sessions. Ladies and gentlemen, the honorable invited speakers, ladies and gentlemen, it is my pleasure that we all have attended the interesting presentation and stimulating and fruitful discussion, although I think 1 or 2 days is not enough. The theme of this international webinar, Global Concerns and Degradation and its Solution, is expected to make us better aware of the ongoing processes that could significantly reduce the capacity of our land resources to support our life on this planet of Earth, today and to next generation. Land degradation has been taking place not only in the developing countries with limited resources, but also in the developed countries. Under this borderless world, we cannot be alone to stop land degradation. We need to work together for global solutions. Furthermore, with the ongoing climate change and global warming phenomena, we have to find ways and do some actions and measures. The webinar we have been through for 2 days at the UPN campus Yogyakarta is partly to remind us about this. As a higher education institution having strong programs in earth sciences, UPN Veteran Yogyakarta feel responsible for this and further support any movement to save our land resources in our planet Earth. Ladies and gentlemen, finally, on behalf of the UPN Veteran Yogyakarta, the Faculty of Agriculture, the Department of Agrotechnology, and the Soil Science Study programs, again, I would like to express my deep appreciations to all honorable speakers and participants from various places on the globe for taking time out of your busy duties to attend and to contribute to the webinar. Last but not least, my colleagues in the webinar committee, thank you so much. The success of this seminar is possible because of your hard work. And now, I would like to close my remarks and officially announced the end of this international webinar. Wishing you all the best. Thank you very much and goodbye. Wassalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Waalaikumsalam warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Goodbye and have a good night from.
Goodbye, Prof. Ali.
Goodbye.
Good Gebri, Pak Utomo.
Good night.
Mataram lagi.
Good night. Yes, certainly saya akan ke sana nanti. Udah lama kita nggak.
Ya, menarik ya, Pak.
Oke.